37, huh?
Oh, what a hit on Dunham by Switowski.
I think I made him shit himself.
Welcome, everyone. DJ Anubis here with my co-host Edgar Allan Poe, Poet, here with Poetic Carnage, episode 25. And it's been a while, but we planned this out for this year where we would open the season, give out our division winners, our Super Bowl picks, etc. meet halfway, and then we'll meet again towards the end of the season before the playoffs. How you been, my friend? I know outside of the sports world, it's not as crazy for you right now that you really care about. In terms of the sport itself, how are you feeling this year so far?
Well, sports in general have been very kind to your boy. Oilers made the Stanley Cup Finals. They didn't win it, but they made it. Had a great season. Dodgers just won the World Series. Lakers are a little bit up and down, but they look like there's some promise there. Had a nasty loss. Davis was out. Steelers significantly better than I expected. Significantly better than a lot of people expected. Kentucky Wildcat basketball is just started. We'll talk about Wildcat football. It's really disappointing year, but sports have been pretty good. The other stuff outside of sports is kind of wild, but that's a different podcast.
All right. So yeah, we're gonna end up going back through our picks for our division winners, and we probably won't worry about the playoffs and stuff yet. But just as far as the division winners, how we feel about what's going on with these other teams. But
yes, sir.
I want to dive into our respective teams because obviously both teams had new looks this year at quarterback. You guys have gotten Justin Fields, and then of course Russell Wilson, who used to be with my Broncos. Now you just recently went to Russell Wilson, but I'm very curious because as I got some clips of the Steelers here in a few games with both quarterbacks, and I'm actually curious about your position, how you feel about Wilson versus Fields. So go ahead and just kind of break it down for you.
Sure.
Me and your other fan base, how you feel about the way the season's gone, how do you feel about the quarterback situation, and so on.
So the season itself, like if we walk through the season, week 1 at Atlanta has big expectations this year. 18-10, good win. Week 2, we went into Denver, brutal place to play, excellent head coach, awesome defense. Won 13-6, very convincing win. Week 3, so we have 2 good wins. Week 3, beat the Chargers. Chargers also looked like a playoff win. Your playoff team beat them 20-10. That game, we were looking rough early on. Herbert, unfortunately, got hurt. I do think the way that their defense kind of it fell apart. I mean, they had bad injuries in that game. One of their tackles went out for a while. I think Bosa ended up missing that game or got hurt in it. They had, but that's football. Last year we had, I think, 8 inside linebackers get significant playing time. So it is what it is. So we have 3 good wins to start the year against 3 playoff teams or playoff caliber teams. Next week, that horrible Cowboys game. I still don't know how we lost that game. That was embarrassing. You run through it. We slap the dog shit out of the Raiders, as is our birthright. Next week, we slap the dog shit out of the fucking Jets. And I'm happy that happened because I picked the Jets to make the playoffs, and they styled on me for that. And then we find ourselves, beat the Giants. That was a closer game than it should be. Had a bye week and all of that. So to get to the quarterback play, Fields was good. Fields played at a solid starting level. He played at a starting quarterback level. Not a lot of weapons on the team.
And keep that in mind because I do have a question regarding him when you're done.
Absolutely. We don't have a lot of weapons. The line, we had a bunch of injuries again to the line. We're shuffling people around. Unfortunately, Broderick Jones has not been playing well, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He had some drop touchdown passes. Every quarterback does, et cetera, et cetera. Made a lot of plays with his legs. When we switched to Russ, it was really controversial. Most people thought it was wrong. I thought it was wrong. Arthur Smith basically came out and said that it was wrong, very politely, but the locker room basically said that they thought it was wrong. The only person happy about it was Pickens, because Pickens wants the moon ball, and that's what Russ throws and still throws well. And then I learned, and Mike Tomlin taught me a lesson, that I should shut the fuck up and just agree with what he does for the most part, because he's a Hall of Fame head coach. In regards to what Russ has given the offense, Russ is a better passer than Fields. Russ has taken more sacks and bad hits than Fields has. Fields really does not get enough credit for making our line look much better than it is, and it didn't look all that great up to that point anyway. But he stretches the field. He opens up the field. There are issues, however. People were hoping that when Russ came in, we attacked the middle of the field before or more. That's not what Russ does. Fryermuth is having a nice year, but when he's catching balls from Russ, it's usually he's either schemed open and he's just wide open over in the middle, or he's really more doing slot stuff. So the limitations of Russ are exactly what they are. In fairness to Russ, he's throwing good jump balls. He's made some nice plays. The offense has been simplified for him. Arthur Smith is doing a really good job. And he's not in a situation where Hackett kind of hung him out to dry and Peyton just dialed up a uber conservative game plan last season. And Russ also played much more conservative in Denver the second year than he has here, partially because I think he was protecting his stats and trying to look better than what he was. Russ is playing at a slightly above average level. I'm always going to be honest on this podcast. I see things in his game that still make me uncomfortable. I don't know if it's going to hold up, but I have to give credit where credit is due. And he's only had one turnover. He's played in 2 games. It was a bad one, having the fumble, getting hit from behind. He still can't figure out when he needs to run for the first down and when he doesn't need to. But the strength of the team is the defense. We changed. We kind of reverted back to our the scheme that we had 2 years ago. The defense is highly ranked. TJ Watt is one of the top front runners for DPOY. Minka Fitzpatrick is back to.
That dude has such a high motor, man.
He does. He is still, in my opinion, the best defensive player in football. I believe that he had 100 sacks. He's one of the fastest players to 100 sacks, and he's doing it in an era where they do throw the ball more. But you will lose that statistic if you hit the quarterback too hard. If they throw the ball, they get the ball out early, so much. It's really hard, even in today's league, where they throw the ball so much, to get sacks. I believe he's going to end up as a top 15 defensive player of all time, maybe top 10. I still get mad about him being robbed last year of DPOY because accolades matter, and that's what really people get remembered for. But look, if you watch that Atlanta game, he had a sack fumble that would have in the red zone that was taken away. The refs, they called it offsides. The refs apologized to him personally after that. He should be at 8 or 9 sacks. He's at 6.5. The guy has bad luck. He can't get a holding call to save his life, and he's still the most disruptive defensive player in football. He is. I just gotta say it. He has taken over the title of Aaron Donald when Donald was it was known that was the guy. We don't talk about TJ Watt enough. We don't talk about defensive players enough. But on this show, we do. And the Steelers are in position to not just make the playoffs. We'll see how it shakes out, but have a pretty high seed. So I can't complain about the season. Mike Tomlin, I think it's either Tomlin or Campbell for Coach of the Year. I think it should be Tomlin, but I am biased.
So yeah, as I was putting those clips together, like I agree with you in a sense that Russell, he has veteran leadership, but he is very one-dimensional. Even in the clips that I saw with the Jets, like it was very.
He can't move anymore.
Yeah. Right. But I watched the clips with Justin, and so Justin was making plays not only with his feet, but he made some pretty incredible throws. Now, I know one of the reasons why they went to Russ because they were kind of frustrated by the lack of scoring touchdowns. They were selling for a lot of field goals early in the season. And so, like, I think that was part of the reason why they moved it around. But I don't know, man. Like, I really like Justin. I think he is the better quarterback of the two. I think he brings more to the team. But if the team is still responding to Russ and you kind of just go with the hot hand.
It's brutal, isn't it? Because if we're just being blunt, one of the best arguments for keeping Fields in there is if he kept getting better, that by the end of the year, you have a guy that you can pay, probably not top dollar, and then that's your quarterback of the future. It's hard to think that Russ is the Steelers quarterback 2 years from now. Fields isn't even 27. And so I did feel like when we switched to Russ, we were sacrificing a potential outcome, a big windfall. But the Steelers, as Tomlin is famous for saying, standard is a standard. You don't think about next year, you think about this year. So we'll see how it pans out. One of the things that really helped Russ is because we don't have a lot of weapons. We just got Mike Williams. We'll see how that goes. We just got Jalen Warren back. We'll see how that goes. But the ability,
Preston Smith too, the linebacker.
Yeah, I'm really happy. I'm interested because he played some D line for the Packers. I don't know how they're going to use him. I think it's going to be at linebacker because I think Herbert's injury is actually pretty bad. So he's a nice depth piece, and we gave up nothing to get him, and he asked for a trade very quietly. But for the thing with Russ, because our weapons aren't, if the Mike Williams thing pans out, our weapons are now passable. But the ability to score from 30, 40, 50 yards out kind of gives the offense a wrinkle that it really needs. And I can't, I think that is fair. Now, I will say, and we saw this on live TV, watching guys drop balls in the end zone for Fields, if he has 3 more passing touchdowns, his stats look radically different. And I hate to say it, and it sounds dumb, but coaches care about stats. They do. Everybody knows what the numbers are. You get paid off the numbers. They fight over the numbers. They do. But it is a data-driven business. And that's why Case Keenum didn't get paid until he had the wins and the stats. And that didn't obviously work out for him long term, but that's one example of it. I want to believe that bad Russ is going to be mitigated by Arthur Smith because the Steelers are running the ball. The fear is if the defense doesn't have it and you get down by 2 scores and you can't run the ball, what does the offense look like? And on one hand, in fairness to Russ, I can chuck it deep, jump balls, can get you back in it. In fairness to Justin, I can rip it 20, 30, 40, 50 yards down the field. And he doesn't get enough credit for this. In the red zone, he was the offense. There weren't a lot of receivers who were getting open. Pickens had some.
He reminded me a lot of, and really it's kind of reversed, but he reminded me a lot of Bo Nix this year.
Yes.
He's able to run for big plays, and he made one rollout where he's off his, opposing left side, and he still made a great pass. It just really is impressive.
We forget about how talented that kid is, and here's the thing too. If you can't root for Justin Fields, you're either an AFC North guy or like a Steeler hater, and I get that. But he went to Chicago. Chicago is so bad, they're already worried about ruining Caleb Williams. And they went out and they got Caleb a lot of weapons. That line is still bad. They didn't invest in it. But he came from a situation where the Bears dumped everything in for Caleb and not him. And horrible coaching. Eberflus is going to get fired. They haven't found an offensive coordinator there who's even decent in, I think, 15 years. It might be longer. And so to come out of that unscathed, when he really should be more like a Josh Rosen or a Joey Harrington or a Kyler Bowler, and being able to play starter, even if it's just mediocre, the kid is tough. The kid is mentally tough. He's obviously physically tough because we saw the abuse he took in Chicago. He is a man's man. And if there's something endearing about Justin Fields, and I hope, because I don't think he's going to get the job back, and I don't think he's going to be a Steeler next year, I hope he can get a chance to win the starting job.
If he's not retained by the Steelers, I hope Denver picks him up.
It would.
Which leads me to another question for you, though.
Go for it.
Is Justin Fields done as a starter in the NFL?
I don't think so. I've seen guys with less talent get more opportunities than he has. I will also say this, and I'm going to be just upfront about it. He never had a chance to win the starting job. If you go back to Pickett said, they told Pickett, we're going to bring in a starter caliber guy. You're going to compete. Then they got Russ, and the Steelers felt that Russ was still a legit starter. So they said, he's the guy, or he has heavy pole position. Pickett threw a wobbler. He got traded to Philly. They almost cut him because he's really bad at football. It made me look bad. Thanks, Kenny, for believing in you. And then
I believed in him.
Yeah, he made us look like I thought he was the next Tony Romo, and instead he was dog shit.
Garbage.
Absolute dog shit. Fields, I think he might have to start next year as a backup. But I think that in a league where Case Keenum has had multiple shots, Sage Rosenfeld has multiple shots, for fuck's sake, Blaine Gabbert has had multiple shots. I mean, those guys are just bad quarterbacks. Or guys that go the other way. Jeff Garcia had multiple. He was good, bad, or obviously Kurt Warner is a Hall of Famer and MVP, Super Bowl, all that stuff. And Fields hasn't done that, but didn't get a shot, got another shot after injuries. There are ways to get yourself back into the league. And fuck, man, look at, to a lesser extent, Andy Dalton, or to a greater extent, Baker and Sam Darnold. There's a chance. The guy, as long as he can throw a semi-accurate ball and he has his athleticism and his gumption, and he runs intelligently. He doesn't take bad shots. He's not just running around like, he's going to be a guy. And I'll be honest with you, my fear is he goes to the Browns next year because it's looking like they might tell Watson to shit and fall back in it. And that defense, even though Myles Garrett is overrated and can't carry TJ Watt's jockstrap, that defense with a competent quarterback, that's a rough team. So, and then he's going to have the revenge factor. So, I think in the short term, yes. In the long term, not necessarily. And Tom Brady, he talks about how the league is just shitting on all these quarterbacks, and we saw what Indy did to Anthony Richardson and whatnot. Well, these guys need a longer leash, and we need to start when guys are struggling and they don't have even a decent mediocre line, and they don't have weapons, and their offensive coordinator is bad, and their head coach is a dingus. Like Bryce Young, we spend too much time shitting on Bryce Young and not shitting on the Panthers organization. And I really believe in that. And, these guys are uber talented. They worked their whole life to get to these points. They didn't suddenly just become talentless hacks. And that is what really frustrates me with the quarterback discourse. I will always root for those guys. I root for the quarterbacks in general because when the league, like last year, football is always great, but all those injuries, last year was not a good regular season product. There's a lot of bad football games. And when your quarterbacks suck, you have shitty football. There's a difference between a great defensive game and then like two guys who just blow chunks who can't fucking wing it. So I'm rooting for Justin. And I wanted him, I'm not going to lie to you, I wanted him to catch on in Pittsburgh because I've always been a Justin Fields guy, dating back to how good he was as a prospect. I guess I'm a Justin Fields truther. So it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
Tell me about your Broncos, man. I got a question for you since we're on quarterbacks. On this very podcast, correct me if we're wrong, we sat here and we said that Bo Nix had enough talent to be a legitimate first-round quarterback, even if he wasn't the second coming of Elway or Marino. Remind me, were we correct on that? Isn't that what we said?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So thus far, he's had the ups and the downs. I mean, he looked horrible against the Steelers, but, to be fair, that is what the Steelers do. That's kind of what we do. He's looked overall pretty good for a rookie this year, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think he's done pretty good. I'm a little bit concerned about that. I mean, it's one play. They looked horrible against the Ravens. The Ravens, just decimated them all over the place. But, he's got to make sure he puts some touch on the ball, especially in the long ball, because he had Franklin in one game. And then in the Ravens, he had a wide open guy that he overthrew. I think it was Franklin again, which is kind of shocking because they played at Oregon together. But, but overall, he's actually done very well. He's been calm. He's been working well in the system. And the defenses, they're almost an heir apparent to the Steelers in some ways with the defense. Can be up and down at times, but for the most part, both defenses are very good. Quarterback play is about the same in terms of how they use the rollouts, tight ends. Our running game is probably not as good as the Steelers at the moment, but we've had some games where we were very good, like against the Saints, against the Raiders. We did very well. He makes some great throws. Like he's got it there. And, I'm pretty happy about that. There's still this, they were talking about trading Sutton at the trading deadline. I'm not sure what's going on there because we just signed him to a deal, I think. So it's really weird.
So the Steelers were involved in that. So the Steelers were going to land Ayuk if the Broncos were willing to trade Sutton to the Niners. You all didn't because you got the price point that you wanted with Sutton, so it didn't make
Yeah.
sense to do it. It's also Sutton's a good player, and it's good to have somebody for your quarterback to throw the ball to. And people get mad when you're making excuses, and then my response is always this: one, if nobody's open, it's hard to get anyone the ball. And two,
Yeah.
I watched Tom Brady say, "Fuck you, Bill Belichick. You won't get me any weapons. You're making this personal." And then he wrecked the league, and he went to Tampa, where he was still awesome, and they had Gronk, Godwin, Evans, Fournette. They had some wide receiver depth, really good offensive line. And if Tom Brady, if his career and Manning's career informs you that good players on offense are good for your Hall of Fame quarterbacks to have, it's probably pretty good for your rookie quarterback, who's probably not as good as Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, to have people to throw the fucking ball to. So I hate it when people are like, oh, they went out and they had to get him weapons. There's a difference between getting somebody competent players or trying to stack a roster so you can win in spite of them. Look at that. Look at that. That's a nice. Yep. That's not a game breaking throw right there. But he made the right read. He dropped it in. That's the type of touchdown you want to be able to get all the time. That's a nice throw. Yep. Like, no one's ever going to mistake this guy for Josh Allen, but people were acting like he was a talentless hack like Mac Jones, and that shit just.
Oh, he's still. Sometimes I still go on forums, and they're still like, "This dude can't play in the NFL." I'm like, "What are you talking about? What game are you watching that you're not seeing?"
Like, if you can run like that, and like, he probably should have slid there a little bit, but he's a competitor and he's young, he's cocky. The linebacker hasn't rearranged his fucking torso quite yet.
The important thing is he's got to show growth, and like I said, some people have already been very harsh on him, saying that he's a bust. But I'm like, dude, it's his rookie year, dude. He's gonna have up and downs, and we're in a game the next couple of weeks where we're playing some very big playoff teams. So it's like, sure, we might not look as good as we did earlier against some subpar teams, but dude, we beat the Jets in New York. I mean, that's not easy to do. And we've also beat the Raiders. We were down 10-0 in that game, I think, and came back.
The Raiders suck, but it's a division game. The Raiders also beat the Ravens.
That, like against the Chargers, we were probably in that game. We came back, but because of the turnovers early in the game, that just kind of did us in. But
and
they're very competitive. Sean Payton still has us competing full game. Vance has actually been pretty impressive as a DC, which is
it's not a fluke anymore. It's not a fluke anymore.
Right.
He's a good DC. He's not a head coach. He's a good DC. Guess what?
Right.
Dick LeBeau was a horrible head coach. He might be the greatest defensive coordinator
though.
Wade Phillip, not a great head coach. It's okay. Like, saying that, like, oh, you're just a coordinator. You're a great coordinator. You're not a great head coach. It's kind of like saying, like, oh, it reminds me of being like the people who are like, you're only Scottie Pippen, or like, you're not Jerry Rice. You were only that tight end.
You're only Ed McCaffrey.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, no, I'm just awesome at my job and I'm just a standout at it. Like, you're right. I'm not Larry Fitzgerald. I'm Anquan Bolden. I fucking suck. Woe is me. Like, fuck off.
I was one of those people that always stood up for Eric Decker, no matter how many times people try to bust on that guy.
Turf monster sometimes made it hard.
I mean, it's funny, but dude, that dude played, man. He came to play every day.
He was a good player.
Yeah,
he was a good player. He got paid for a reason. And the thing of it is that, like, I think people need to understand too. Like, if you look at it, like, let's move away from sports. Look at any successful business, like big, like Fortune 500 company. There are a lot of people that matter in that company, the higher up, but there's only one CEO. So there's a board of trustees. Do they not matter? I mean, just like, seriously. I mean, like, we wouldn't say that in any other thing. So Vance Joseph, bad head coach, had a very good season as a DC in Arizona one year. They had several All-Pros guys on that defense. Next year, they had a really bad defense. In fairness, they lost all their All-Pro defensive players. Came to Denver. Kudos to him for being able to coach or coordinate at a place where he used to be a head coach. A lot of people don't have that humility. Started off that Dolphins game was brutal, but then since that Dolphins game, Denver's been having some pretty ferocious defenses. It is what it is, man. Like, it's not a fluke. He's a good coordinator.
Yeah, and I expected some bumps in the road this year, which definitely is happening. But at the same time, we're right in the thick of it. We're 5-3, I think, right now, or 5-4 because we just lost. But
in a tough division. The Chargers are good. The Chiefs are the Chiefs.
And
the
the Raiders,
AFC is tough. The Raiders beat the
still
Ravens.
compete.
Yeah, they beat the Ravens. We still don't know how, but that is the thing that happened. That was another game where Lamar was just amazing. And the defense was like, we don't really believe in tackling. And remember that Dolphins game? What was it, 2 years ago? Where they just kept giving up chunk plays and they blew a game. It was like that again.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Lamar,
but we notoriously suck in Miami, so that didn't shock me at all.
No, I hate when the Steelers play in Florida, like especially when they go to Jacksonville. It's just a cursed place.
Damn, you could take Jacksonville could be like playing their worst football, but they will if you play them or fucking London. They are like
Jesus and London. Yeah, they are meant to be
there.
There's something about that fish and chips that just get them up in the morning. And they just that bad British food.
Speaking of the AFC East,
yeah.
So, in my picks for the rankings of the division winner,
yes, sir,
I picked Miami. Now, to be fair to me, I didn't anticipate for what's his face to get like lamb blasted and have a concussion for a few games.
They keep losing their pass rushers. Thank God Jalen Ramsey is still good at corner because that's like the only they lost their pass rushers. They lost their pass rushers Chubb and Phillips to Achilles. I think
now, if I recall, because I did have Buffalo second, but they're playing very well right now. You had Buffalo, and then I think you had the Jets. I did. The Jets. Okay.
I shit the bed, man. I here's the thing. Aaron Rodgers, the person, irritates me very much. Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback, I just wanted to believe. And I was wrong. I will never do that shit again. I will never pick the Jets to do anything good ever again, except maybe I will pick them to exist and make a lot of money.
This is why you mentioned Justin going to Cleveland. I'm like, please don't, because sometimes there are just places where players go to die. That's just really what it is.
Yeah.
And the Jets are one of those teams. Like Rodgers, no matter how much he wanted to be there, I think I could have just said to myself, "You're going to go there to die. Your career is done."
Yeah, he's also a horrible leader and a petulant child as well.
He is so bad, dude.
Yeah,
so bad.
Yep. I kind of I once proclaimed that if you just take highlight reels or you just look at throwing motion or you just take how good they are at skill at the game, that Rodgers in a vacuum is the GOAT. And there's still an argument. The man was especially in his prime, which lasted forever, was an artist. And because of that, I kind of let a lot of his bad leadership qualities, and I'm not talking about the COVID stuff. I mean, there's some stuff that goes along with that as well. I'm not talking about the COVID stuff, but there's just so much stuff that's documented. It would be unserious to kind of push back and say that he is a good leader. He didn't always used to be a bad leader. It's something about those Green Bay quarterbacks. I guess all that cheese, you're there for 15 years.
Same shit happened in Favre, too.
Exactly. And so Brett Favre also.
And where did he go to die? New York.
He went to New York. Then he had a renaissance 1 year in Minnesota. Then he was horrible in Minnesota. No, that was after.
Was it?
It
was before.
No, it was after. He went there. Now, in fairness to Favre, he had them about to make the playoffs. And then he got hurt and he played through it, which is a very Brett Favre thing to do.
Okay, well, that kind of makes sense because even if that happened that way, so he goes to Minnesota, has a resurgence, and then that's sort of like
and then horrible.
Moss went to Oakland, did terrible, but then went to New England and had a resurgence.
He's admitted it. He's admitted to dogging it in Oakland.
You know he did.
He was like, well, they paid me, and this place is terrible, so why do I need to try? Man, if he just gave a fuck his entire career, he might have been the GOAT. Still one of my favorite players of all time, though.
Oh yeah,
absolute beast. But no, the East, I picked Buffalo because I thought their defense was going to be better than what people thought because everyone saw all those names leave. Then they didn't factor in that a lot of those names were older guys. They were injured. They weren't in their prime. And Buffalo drafts well. I got that right. Jets, I'm sorry. I knew better. I think they can only be good once every 30 years because that explains like the Sanchez mini revolution that they had.
Or Testaverde and all that.
Yeah. I picked the Dolphins to get third. I wanted them to be, I would have thought that they would have been better, but I said last year, Tua's health scares me. Thank God he was healthy last year. This year he got hurt earlier. It is what it is. And I think pretty much everybody knew the Patriots.
But it is strange because he came back last week and looked amazing. So like it just shows you that if he can stay healthy, they actually have a legit chance to beat it.
But this is the thing. So, and I didn't know this until a couple of weeks ago. Last season, he gained weight and he did not run at all. He's never been like a takeoff and scramble guy, but that was a little spice he had in his game, right? This last year, I think, at the end of the year, he realized, in order for me to be great, I need my mobility. I need to be able to run a little bit. So he lost that 15 pounds, and that hit that he took that gave him a concussion, he ran into the guy. It wasn't some like crazy, it wasn't some Vontaze perfect hit. I just think that he's one of the toughest football players I've ever seen. And I think his toughness works against him. And I don't shy away from the fact that every time I see him on the field, I get a sense of dread. I feel uncomfortable. He's a grown man. He has the right to play football if he wants. I will respect his wishes. I will say I'm glad that 20 years ago, we would have said just the notion of him retiring would have meant that he was a soft pussy, blah, blah, all that stuff. I'm glad that we take concussions more seriously and we don't think that way.
Right.
I will always root for him, but man, I unfortunately I would have loved to have been wrong about Tua again. And it sucks because that offense is high flying. It's a fun offense. Everybody likes that coach. They got a good coach. They have their defense has nice pieces. They just can't stay healthy. It's got to be frustrating to be a Dolphins fan. And
well, before we move on to the North, one quick thing question for you is. Does Drake May have a future in New England?
Yeah.
You think he's doing okay?
I think he's doing 12 out of 10. He's so much better at throwing the ball than he was in college. Their line is really – so you know how I used to go on rants about Denver fans acting like they had the worst line in football and it's like throw out all the stats and the eye test and the common sense. Their line is literally what Denver fans thought that they had. None of them are any good. I would go so far as to say I don't even know, aside from the young guys, I don't know if there's even a quality backup on that line. It's one of the worst lines that we've seen in recent memory. And he's playing well. I did not like him coming out of college. I said he was so talented that he should be drafted, but that he was very raw. And the team, whoever takes him, they need to be patient with him and not act like they were in a win now thing because the roster's so shit. They're not in win now mode. And as well as he has been playing, we got to give him props. And it sucks that he's a Patriot. But man, he's been doing it. He's just been doing it. The tape does not lie. Doesn't mean he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. Doesn't mean that he might not make it. But if you're a Patriots fan, you should be enthused and happy that you guys drafted him. And you should be optimistic. Fuck nihilism in sports. Unless you're a Jets fan, in which case stop being a Jets fan because you deserve better. Probably.
Didn't they kick out the fireman of the stadium? I forget. I read something about that. I was like, what?
I read that he complained that they weren't putting him on TV enough and rallying. I don't know if something happened with him. He's iconic for their franchise. They're a joke. I mean, the Jets are a joke. They have one of the worst owners in sports. There's no leadership there. I honestly would tell you this. Their franchise is so bad. Their last 4 or 5 drafts, they have absolutely killed it. They've been they whiffed on Zach, and Becton was a horrible pick. It was an overrated project. With that being said, they have drafted incredibly well. And when you draft that well and you're able to get as many really excellent football players on the field and you still can't really sniff the playoffs, it's the owner. And maybe the GM gives out bad contracts. Maybe the GM
actually that makes a lot of sense.
It's the owner.
Look at Dallas. Dallas should be way better than they are.
They are, and they're good every year. That's the problem with Jerry Jones. It's like his son runs the front office. He has the final say. Jerry does. His son has some talent for drafting. They draft very good players. They're horrible at giving out contracts. They can't understand the concept of paying people early gives you flexibility later on. It's football. It's GM 101. I'm not saying anything there, but there's something fundamentally broken about the Cowboys and the Jets. But at least the Cowboys usually get 10 to 12 wins in the playoffs and the pomp and circumstance. The Jets are just the only team I honestly think that's in a worse state of affairs than the Jets, the Browns, because of that
Giants.
Watson contract. No, the Giants will have a clean cap and they can hit refresh. It's the Panthers, because the Panthers owner is an idiot.
Yeah.
But it is poverty franchise levels in the Jets. My buddy Hinkle, shout out to the homie Hinkle, when he was getting back into football, he was watching a podcast. The podcaster is a huge Jets fan. And I said, I would be a bad friend to you if I let you be a Jets fan. I said, I would be a bad. And whenever he gets mad at me, I remind him, I said, yeah, maybe you might be mad at me now, but friend, I didn't let you be a Jets fan because you wouldn't like football if you're a Jets fan.
So AFC North, I picked the Ravens to win it, the Steelers behind them, Cleveland and Cincinnati. And I kind of, even though my top two are reversed, because Pittsburgh's in the lead right now playing very good football, but Baltimore is like right on their ass. I thought Cleveland would be a little better, and you thought Cincinnati. I'm pretty sure you picked Cincinnati to be above them.
Yes.
But I'm really Cincinnati's catching fire a little bit, but they're always slow starters. Like, I think that hurts them the most every season.
They are slow starters. Their defense is terrible. That loss against the Patriots in week 1 might really fucking haunt them. And we'll see how they play tonight. We'll see how they do, because the Ravens own – it's so weird. Carson Palmer used to own the Ravens. Chad Johnson used to own the Ravens. Andy Dalton and A.J.
I'm actually glad you brought up Palmer, because I look at what's going on with Burrow, and I'm seeing the same shit. Not to play. Burrow's still very much a good quarterback, but that they get not fixing that line, and he is getting
I don't get it though, because they spend money. They dumped money on that line. They drafted highly touted prospects on that line. They've shuffled guys around leading up to his rookie year. They had drafted back-to-back tackles in the first round, even before Burrow was there, and Jonah Williams and somebody else. And so it's not like it hasn't worked. Part of it is on Burrow. There have been some plays where he has gotten hurt, that he held on the ball too long. Part of it is, and I hate to say this.
Do you think he sometimes focuses too much on Chase, though? Because I know whenever you have a big time receiver, and Jamar Chase is great, but
he's a top 5 guy, elite talent.
They do have these egos, kind of like Pickens. They want the ball all the time, and it's like, I want to get you the ball, my friend, but when you have 5 guys on you, it's hard to get you the fucking football.
Well, he spreads the ball out, because he's always gotten Higgins the ball. And then when they had, what is that guy? Boyd, they got him the ball. They're getting the tight end the ball. They got Mixon. So I don't think it's with Chase, when he's blowing up, it's usually because they're losing. Sometimes he wants the ball, and sometimes he is open. But I don't sense that issue. The issue that I sense is he's had some bad luck. That injury, that leg injury that he had at the start of camp last year, the wrist injury. It's kind of like when Lamar, his one big injury, really ironically was in the pocket, or when Kyler Murray tore his ACL running free down the sidelines. Like, it's just, football is a game where shit happens. I think for Burrow, he does need to work on getting the ball out a little bit quicker sometimes. I think he's just had bad luck with the injuries. I also think that, and I said this too, when they signed the Cat to be their left tackle from Kansas City. Go back 3 years. He's one of the best left tackles in football for the Ravens. Ravens offer him a contract. Says, I want to turn it down. If I do it again, I'm going to be the highest paid tackle. Has an above average year. Ravens say, all we do is replace offensive linemen. Send him to Kansas City. Has a great year. They offer him a contract. And he ends up going to the Bengals. He doesn't get the offer that he wants. The Bengals still give him a lot of money, a really, really good offer. He's been an above-average left tackle. He's not been an elite left tackle. They don't have an elite. They don't have elite guards. If you look at the Kansas City model, they said we can get anyone who's just average at tackle because Mahomes, the way he moves, the things that he does. The Bucs wrecked us when we were down a bunch of offensive linemen in the Super Bowl. Let's up the gut. Let's pay the guards. Let's pay the guards. Let's pay the center. We have a special quarterback who can deal with the stuff on the outside. I'm not saying that they just got bums out there, but they're not paying their tackles elite money, and they don't have elite tackles. I don't know if that's the thing for Burrow. I don't know what it is. What I know is this. He's a slow starter. He has injury concerns. They have not beaten anybody who's good this year. They struggle against the Ravens. They specifically struggle against the Ravens when Lamar is playing. And if they lose this game because the AFC is a little bit weaker than we thought it would be this year, they're not out of it. But, you know, if they lose tonight, it's a big issue.
Yeah, I think that puts them at 500, I think. Or no, it would still be 4 and
they'd be 2.
6.
Yeah, they'd be 2 games under. And I wish, and I said this too, I wish the Steelers got a crack at them before they kind of picked up, because their defense is terrible, but Joe Burrow is a top 5 guy. Now, here's the thing. Lamar's probably going to win his 3rd MVP.
Yeah.
And Burrow hasn't done anything since the Super Bowl run. I mean, he's been good in the regular season. I've always had Allen a little bit ahead of Burrow, although Burrow is a more consistent player. I have Mahomes at 1. I have Lamar at 2. I have Allen at 3. I have Burrow at 4, and my list used to be Mahomes at 1, Burrow at 2, although I'd say you could swap him and Allen, Lamar at 4. So Burrow one thing that frustrates me is he gets a bit of a media pass when he plays bad, and the thing that killed me is a Peyton Manning guy. Peyton Manning lost. Didn't matter if he threw 6 touchdowns and 1 pick. He lost. If Burrow has a good stat game and they lose, the standard for him is, and this isn't his fault, but the standard for him is, well, they just need to do more for Joe. He's held to a softer standard. I think part of it is he's just so likable. I think part of it is people remember how shit the Bengals typically are, things of that nature. But if they win tonight, you have to take them seriously. And with those weapons, they can beat anyone. There's not a single team, even if they have 4 wins, with that quarterback and those weapons, they can beat anybody. But I am shocked. And you've been chat to our viewers. Anubis has been very kind to me here, because he did not remind you that my order of the division was I swapped the Bengals and the Ravens because of the Higgins injury, which I said. So I had the Ravens at 1, the Bengals at 2, the Browns at 3, and my Steelers at 4. So he's being a gentleman about it and not bringing up how wrong I am. But
yeah, I knew you were pretty wrong.
Yeah, you did not agree with my list when I made it.
Well, I just, because I thought Russell is Russell, which, yeah, you can make a pause there, but I thought the move to get Justin was so good. Like, I just thought, wow, that's
5th round.
That was impressive. And you guys didn't have to give up a lot to do it. And it's like, sure, he's benched right now, but he still gave him a shot in the arm early in the season. So, like, I'm not.
And he hit.
Yeah, I just think of both quarterbacks, no matter which way you want to go, you're at least in somewhat decent shape. And the defense has actually played lights out better than I thought they would.
Yeah. No, ironically, I thought the defense was going to take a step back, and the Steelers are on pace to have the best defense in the league almost across the board. Here's the thing, too, and I don't wish injuries on players, but if Russ got hurt, I don't have to feel like my season's over. We might have a bad game as he gets reacclimated. Pardon me, to the thing, but to the game. But with Fields, I'm happy that he got to go to a team he wanted to go to. I'm happy it was my team, and you were right. The defense was better than I thought it was going to be, and you also were right that even if it was Justin or Russ, the offense was going to be a lot better than what I thought it was going to be. So. You were a gentleman about it. You didn't rub my face in it.
Hey, you haven't rubbed my face into some of the crazy losses we had this year. So I'm all good with that.
I'm not. I don't typically like that, especially if.
I mean, dude, Neko literally came to me a week ago and says, "Do you want to go to the Ravens game?" I think her mom was planning on getting us tickets. I said, "No." Granted, we've been working on the house, but I said no. And I talked to some dude on one of the Bronco threads on Facebook, and I said, we just notoriously play bad in Baltimore. We don't do well here. The guy's like, well, those were in the past. We had different quarterbacks. You can't really compare those now. I said, look, sometimes it's just mentality. Like you go into the Ravens stadium, like sometimes when you watch Cleveland play the Ravens, again, they're division opponents. Cleveland will give them a fight to the death. Jameis beat them. So like it's any given Sunday, but I know that sometimes like when we played in '98 after we went to Miami and lost to Marino and the Dolphins, I said, if we have to play them again, they come to Denver, we will beat them because they do not like cold weather. They will not like it. No. And sure enough, we whipped their ass. And so,
ironically,
you can sit there and argue like, well, they're football players, so they should be used to them. It's like, yes, but it's still a mentality thing. They're so used to those warmer climate area games. They spend half their season over there in Miami.
It is. Part of it is they're just not used to it. And the sad thing of it is, and Dolphin fans have reminded us all the time, Marino was not a bad cold weather quarterback. Fucking Pittsburgh kid. Right. It was everybody else. I mean, not
but then you start getting acclimated to the area you live in. Like if I go into Colorado right now, because of the altitude, I'll get headaches because I'm not drinking enough water. But when I was living there, it was never a fucking problem. But if Denver goes to Miami, it's the humidity. Like it hits you hard. And so like you feel like you're suffocating. So you're so used to clean, fresh air. And it's like, no, not here in Miami, sir. All right, let's go into the South. Now, this one really I fucked up, except for my top pick. I still am okay there. Houston, I had Jacksonville at number 2, Tennessee at number 3, and Indianapolis at 4. But granted, Indianapolis, Tennessee, and Jacksonville all suck. They're not doing very well. But Indianapolis actually has the most potential of all.
I had Indy fighting for the 3rd wild card spot. So this season, I've either looked like a genius or a moron. Week to week. I had Houston in last place, but they spent money. They didn't get wide receivers that I liked, but they spent money. They got guys who had some talent. They were operating like a team that didn't believe that they sucked, and I respect that.
But you know what, though? You were right about something. So they're in first. But if you look at the games they've lost, they are not looking as good as they did last year.
No,
they're playing with fire.
Oh,
like,
I was
they
talking
could
about
very much.
I was trying. Maybe I said Houston. I meant to say Tennessee. So I picked. Okay. I was right on Tennessee, but I didn't feel great about that one because they were trying to be competitive. I did not really like Jacksonville all that much. I thought that they'd fight for a wild card, but I didn't believe that they would get it. I thought Indy has a better roster and a better coach, sadly, than them. And Indy's season, we could do a whole podcast about the weirdness that is their season. And then the Texans, I thought that they were going to take a step back because I like Stroud. Everyone knows I like Stroud. Stroud is awesome. Yeah. If he had the same year as a rookie for 10 straight years, he'd be arguably a top 5 quarterback of all time. It was hard to believe he was going to have the same. I thought he'd be a better quarterback, but he might not be as statistically successful. And this year, okay, you get Mixon, and Mixon is running well, but he's banged up a little bit. But he's running the ball well again. I don't know what happened to him in Cincinnati. He might have had a point when he said they didn't run the ball with him enough. He might have been right. So you got that. That's going for you. Nico Collins is hurt, but he's coming back. Nico's a beast. Diggs is out for the rest of the year. That could hurt. Tank Dell has not returned to form. Now, granted, he had a really nasty leg break, so he might need a whole season. I'm not saying he's playing like trash. I think he's a very good player, but he's still good, but he's not back to form. So the offense is not this 35 points a game juggernaut that some people predicted. The defense is a little bit better than I think what a lot of people thought, especially the pass rush. The Texans are a dangerous team. You have to respect them, but if the Texans and the Steelers, like right now, if they played, let's say it's the playoffs, if it's at home, I would think the Steelers would win. If it was at Pitt, I think the Steelers would win. If it was at the Texans, I would think the Texans would win. Coming into the year, if you had told me it was going to be that matchup, I would have picked the Texans flat out, regardless of where it was. Right. They're a good team. They're not a great team. But here's the thing that they get to experience, and this is a positive for them. One, they've tasted the hype. They know what it feels like to have expectations. And 2, they're a little under the radar now because they're not great. But 3, they definitely have the pass rushers. They have some players in the secondary, and they still have a lot of great offensive weapons. They are talented enough to beat anybody in the NFL. Not saying I would pick them to beat Kansas City. I'm not saying I would pick them to be a healthy San Fran team, who I still think very highly of, but they have knockout punch power, and but they have failed to meet expectations. Now that division has been way shittier than I think what a lot of people predicted, so that's also helping.
Yeah. All right. Well, going into my AFC West, I'm not super bad in here. I'm pretty close to what I did. I picked Kansas City win it. I had Denver second, Los Angeles third, and Vegas fourth. Now, Denver and Los Angeles are switched, but we're only, I think, one game behind them.
100%.
Yeah. So
I had. I think I remember.
You had the Chargers second.
I had the Chargers second.
But I think you had us last. I think you had Raiders above us.
I think I did. I think that was. That also
How dare
might have
you
been.
play porn-star stash ahead of us? How dare you?
Well, in fairness to me, I was getting back at you and Missy for trolling me about the thing. But I said what I said. Now, if the bottom falls out, maybe I'm right. I don't want that though, because fuck the Raiders. Like seriously, fuck the Raiders. Kansas City, easy pick for the Super Bowl. They suffered all kinds of injuries on offense. DeAndre Hopkins, shocker, is still good at football when he has a quarterback that can get him the ball. Xavier Worthy's a nice little piece. I had Rashee Rice in fantasy, and he was destroying everything, and then he got hurt. Pacheco will be back, although with Andy Reid, they'll always be able to run the ball. Kareem Hunt is having a nice redemption story. For those who don't know the Kareem Hunt story, if you are squeamish, you might not want to look into it. You did a very bad thing.
Yeah.
You did a very bad thing. Their defense is special. With the Chargers, very good team.
Well, he did pay the penalty though. They sent him to Cleveland. That's punishment enough.
They did send him to Cleveland. He went through the judicial system. You could argue whether or not he was adequately punished for that.
Right.
All that stuff. In fairness to him, he's not, that we know of, done anything like that again. So how you want to slice that is how you want to slice that. You might not call it a redemption arc, and I get that. I'm definitely not saying he was a victim in anything either. Now with the Chargers, they run the ball well. The defense is good because they had all those good defensive players, just needed a real coach. Their issue is Quentin Johnson's doing well for them, showing some nice things. They don't have a lot of weapons on offense. And the whole, our offensive linemen are our weapons. You didn't even do that in San Fran. In San Fran, you had Crabtree, you had Vernon Davis. You threw the ball a little bit in San Fran, Harbaugh. Don't sell me on that. You'll be picking up some weapons in free agency or the draft and or both. Herbert's still a stud. He's kind of wasting away there a bit. But the division has been pretty interesting. The Chargers need to get healthier, and they need their offensive skill players to keep stepping up. But they are a playoff caliber team. So, I mean, it is, with respect to your Denver Broncos, I apologize.
That's okay. Now, because I know you probably don't remember who all you picked for the playoffs, should we use this opportunity to revise our stuff? Because I have two teams that aren't going to be there.
I'm trying to. So I've kind of said who I thought throughout the AFC. In the NFC, I remember in the North. I remember I picked the Bears as a wild card. That one's still alive. I picked the Packers to win the division and the Lions to be a wild card team. That's probably going to be a swap. In the South, I picked Atlanta. Tampa would contend for a wild card, but I had them missing it. I might be right on that, but unfortunately, it's because of all those injuries they had.
Yeah.
God, that fuck. Also, Baker Mayfield, a real easy guy to root for. The maturation is great. Still has that same mentality, but he kind of reined it in a little bit. Shout out to Baker Mayfield. In the East, I had the Eagles winning the division, but the Cowboys making the wild card. In fairness to me, I think everybody else did.
I'm gonna have to wait till I go through that one to figure out who swapped.
And
but in the AFC, I've basically, when I had initially, I had Kansas City, Baltimore, Houston, Miami, Buffalo, Jacksonville, and Denver.
Yeah.
So clearly, Denver is kind of on the fence, but I think I'm comfortable moving Miami out and put Los Angeles in, and taking Jacksonville out and putting Cincinnati in, because they are kind of getting better. And they're really the only one that I think has a legitimate shot to kind of overcome their early losses and get back in, since they kind of done it before.
That is true.
But everything I also will stay the same: Kansas City, Baltimore, Houston, and Buffalo. I think they're shoe-ins regardless. Oh, wait. What am I doing? Take Denver out. Never mind. My faux bar. So take Denver out, and we're going to put Pittsburgh in, because I don't know how I overlooked them. So yes, Denver, despite being on that fence, it could be a battle between them and Cincy, but Pittsburgh's going to be a shoe-in. I think, unless something drastic happens to them, I don't see them really blowing it. So those three teams, I think, will be in Chargers, Bengals, and Steelers.
It is. So if I will pick the Ravens.
Sorry for that disrespect. That wasn't
intentional. It was funny because
I just overlooked it.
I remember I remember you going, fuck, I think the Steelers are making it, but I don't know like how they're getting in there. And I think you ended up going, they're going to have a winning record and they're going to be the one team out. I think it will be a wild card team. Our schedule in the second half is especially brutal. I'm going to pick the Ravens to win it. I'll pick the Steelers for a wild card. So division winner is the Bengals. I'll do wild cards. Not the Bengals. No, the Ravens are division winner. In the South, it's going to be the Texans. In the East, it's going to be the Bills. And in the West, it's going to be the Chiefs. So if you look at the South, your wild card contender, really there is only the Colts. So let's see. So you have Indy. Then you have Pittsburgh and Cincinnati in the mix. You don't have anyone in the East in the mix. And then in the West, you have the Broncos and the Chargers. I think the Steelers will hold on. Oh God, it's tough. I want to say the Colts because they're still in it, but I just don't believe.
They're 4-5, but depending on how their rest of their season plays out in the schedule, like if it's too hard, they won't make it. But they do have a good enough defense, and they have Taylor, and it's all about keeping Richardson upright. Like he has the same kind of problems that some of these other quarterbacks do. He tries to be a little bit too much like Vic, and he gets killed when he's trying to do that.
So I'm going to say Steelers. I think the Bengals are just going to miss. So I'm going to say Steelers, Chargers, Broncos. Those are your three.
Okay.
I'm going to pick the AFC.
I'm happy
so the
about
AFC
that.
West will be what the North was last year with 3 playoff teams. Now, in fairness to the Bengals, they were last in the division and they still had a winning record. But yeah, it's your division's been brutal this year. Now, I will say this: a team I'm the least confident that I picked out of the wild cards, actually the Chargers, because they're the only team out of all the 5 that I listed that don't have either a lot of offensive weapons or an excellent defense. I think they have a good defense. They have a good defense, not the best weapons, and so that means. While we could debate who has the best coach. It seems like
they still kind of have that issue that we saw when they lost to Jacksonville a year or two ago in the playoffs, where they get ahead of you, they play well, but then they let teams back in it, and they oftentimes will lose in the end because they almost lost to Denver at the last minute too.
Because their offense went quiet. I mean, and that is, I don't want to make it sound like this is a year with scoring. I think for the 3rd straight year, scoring has gone down and defense has gone up. So what we're actually seeing is a really nice blend of strategy and viability, because you can be a really good team. I don't think you can have a garbage offense and have an all-time. I think the only way you can win with the garbage offense from a Super Bowl is have a historic, like a truly historic defense. But now we are getting back to where you can have a solid offense and a really good defense and be deep playoff run viable. And I think you can. I think we're also back to where you can be playoff valuable with a great offense and a bad defense. So defense is kind of catching up, and football is obviously this year's a better product than last year because there's not all the quarterback injuries. But it doesn't feel as tilted towards offense as it has in the last 5-6 years, and that is what's helping. Because 4 years ago, if you had the same Chargers roster, obviously it would be weird because I think Herbert was a rookie or a second-year player. But if you had about the more or less team, would be like, God damn, that's a really strong 8-win team. Probably not playoff viable. So it's interesting, man. Football is great again. And it's always great, but it's greater.
Yeah. Well, NFC East, this, this was surprising. Now, granted, you at the time, I think, when I put Washington third, you were kind of like, I don't know.
You're being very
no,
hold on. You're being very kind to me again because I believe the words I said was "you're fucking high." So you're being. I know the facial expression I made when you said that was "you're fucking high." So you're being a gentleman. It's okay. I gotta wear it. You've been giving me credit for the things I got right, so you can style on me. Washington, I'm so happy that your owner is not Dan Snyder.
They are impressive, man. And that's funny because we talked about Jones and Dallas where they're struggling, whereas you replace Snyder and all of a sudden their whole mentality as a team is changed. Coaching on down to playing, Jaden Daniels is killing it.
Bro, I want to take a victory lap on that. I love that kid coming out of college. I said he's a great passer. He's a great runner. The kid he never got the fucking credit he deserved for how smart of a fucking football player he is, and he's tough as shit. It's his frame. That's going to be it. Look, if he was the same guy but 2 inches taller and 20 pounds heavier, we'd be like, maybe he should have been the number one.
And the thing is, they're really fun to watch. So like right now, especially with just anybody, like it goes with Josh Allen and Buffalo. Like I pray they all stay healthy because I want to see a playoffs where everybody is healthy and playing at their best. Like,
yes,
I worry about his frame with Daniels, and so like he likes to run, which is great, but I worry about those like smaller quarterbacks where he's not like small in terms of height, but just he's not like muscled out too much yet. And so I just hope he stays healthy because they are a fun team to watch. And so they will make some moves in the playoffs if they actually get there. Now Dallas,
you're right. He's listed at 6'4". I don't think he's 6'4". I think he's 6'2" or 6'3", but that's tall enough. It's the 210. Like it's the 210. And so he doesn't even look like he weighs 200 pounds. Kid is a stud, and I loved him coming out of college. He throws such an accurate ball. I don't pretend to know everything about quarterback mechanics. That game against Cincinnati was. I mean, it made me happy for obvious reasons, but that kid that is a monster. You're a stud when players. There's an ESPN article a couple of days ago talking about the trade deadline. Agents were getting flooded with requests to get traded to Washington. So his peers believe in him. The mechanics, I don't know everything about quarterback mechanics. I only know what I know from the cool, like YouTube, like, I used to be a quarterback. This is what a good throw looks like from this release type of thing. It's a beautiful thrower of the football. The dude is exciting. He is,
he reminds me. Just got Lattimore from the Saints, so that helps out on defense.
Because the defense is the issue. He is what they're experiencing is it's like, remember, it's RG3, but he's the better version of RG3. He's the better version. And RG3, fucking monster before the injuries. One really, really awesome quarterback, really, really talented. Daniels, man, they what a time. Because Caleb is there in the draft. If there's not Caleb, Daniels is certainly going number one or should go number one.
Yeah.
And man, to have him fall to you, it's so wild because we've had so many bad quarterback classes, and not all that's on the quarterbacks, obviously. But to go from Stroud, we're like, who's going to even remotely come close to what Stroud did as a rookie? And Daniels can raise his hand and answer that now. So I mean. Hold my beer. Yeah, holy shit.
Now the Eagles are second, and like, okay, they're still solid, but I do worry about them because they're not very consistent, especially in game. Like, it's really weird watching them because, and I looked at the standings for the quarterbacks, and Hurts is like down towards the bottom.
Hurts, I actually think. So last year, I said that he was statistically better than what he was as a player.
Yeah.
This year, I think he's better as a player than what his stats say. He's hitting big time throws. The turnovers aren't there. He is dominating people in the run game and staying healthy. He's converting the big plays. But what he's really doing, and this is why I actually think that they've become, especially over the last month, a very consistent team on offense. It's Saquon's team. They're feeding him the ball. They're playing through him. They're still getting Devontae the ball. I mean, he just recently got healthy. They're always going to get A.J. Brown the ball. He's always open. He's just a bad man. He's just a bad motherfucker. Bad motherfuckers get open. It's in the Bible. Read it. But it's just what it is. Swole Batman, one of the best sports nicknames of all time. Swole Batman. That offense is firing. They're a scary team. Their defense is actually not horrible, which is kind of a shock.
I didn't think they would be, because we talked about it during the draft, and they
got a lot of players. Yeah. But they really fucking revamped that defense. It's at least respectable. Hurts. I think Hurts is having a good season, all things considered. He right now is back in my top 10 quarterback list. Probably 9 or 10, but he's back. He's back in it.
Now you're right though here, because I'm looking at, like, even though he was kind of ranked towards the bottom because that was like the general stats.
Yeah.
When I look at completion percentage, so really your top 6 quarterbacks, this is mind blowing. Number 1 is Jaden Daniels. Yeah. He's at 71.5%. Baker second. Joe Burrow is third, despite their issues.
He's a bad man.
Patrick was low on the general stats too, but he's 4th on percentage, so he's got a high percentage of completions. Hurts is right behind him, and then Sam Darnold. We'll be getting to him soon. So that's pretty impressive for Jaden, for a rookie, to be the number 1.
Absolutely. What's or I'm going to look this up. You're a QBR guy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much so.
You're a QBR guy. I have not looked it up yet. What do you think his QBR is right now, Jalen Hurts?
God, I haven't even looked at anybody this year yet, so it's really tough. It's got to be at least based on even just what I just saw there with complete. He's got to be within like 75 to 85%.
Okay, I'm going to give you the top 10.
Okay.
Number 1, Lamar at 77, not a shocker.
Right.
Not a shocker. Joe Burrow 76.3, not a shocker. Daniel 76.1, not a shocker. Yep. Allen 73.1, not a shocker. Yep. Kyler Murray 71.5. That's pretty
surprising.
Mahomes,
just because of the way the team's playing, but
69. But they're on the upswing, and that's nice. Mahomes is at 6th with 69.5. Hurts is 7th at 65.4. So part of Hurts's game is they're not asking him to throw it 40 times anymore. Very few quarterbacks should be throwing it 40 times, even in standard football. Consistently.
Right.
But he's hitting the open throws. He's hitting the intermediate throws. He's hitting the difficult throws. Because when you don't have to do that 7 times a game, it's more manageable. They're running the ball. They're letting him run the fucking ball. They're back to attacking every level of the fucking defense. And because they can run the ball, Hurts is a lot like Dak, where they're, I think, very obvious players. Dak's had a better career. I think peak Hurts might be better than peak Dak. That's an interesting conversation. But they can win if they don't have a strong running game. But it limits them from being true Super Bowl contenders. So Hurts is really peak Hurts, top 5 guy. Standard Hurts is probably.
And see, that's the important part. That's why I'm glad you brought up QBR, because that tells me that he's actually doing more than what I'm seeing, because so many people do try to discredit QBR, because I know it does have its faults in some areas.
Yeah, it's a stat.
But it's also supposed to make sure you understand that we're focusing on what he brings to the team, not everything else, just what he brings.
It's right. And so with his QBR, I think is to me, I actually thought it would be a little bit higher, because QBR does factor in running. Which it should. I mean, it should. I thought that he was going to be around 4 or 5. Now, there are some guys who, how do I put this? There are some guys who I see their QBR numbers and it shows me what the flaws of QBR are. But you also, even though you're a QBR guy, you don't take it as gospel. It's not like my analysis is I read QBR and that's it.
Right.
You know, and so it is I look at it as a good starting point to analysis.
Well, and this is the thing. So, because I know exactly what you're talking about, because Derek Carr is number 9. Now he's been benched, but he might have other issues outside of the QBR, which is like turnovers has always been kind of his biggest thing.
My camera went out for a second.
That's fine.
I apologize.
You're fine. But I'm going to kind of go back to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a minute. Trevor Lawrence is 11th, so they're struggling. They're having issues. Do you think he's jumped a shark, or do you think he just needs a change of scenery?
Yes. Here's the thing. He's immensely talented. He's regarded as one of the best prospects in recent memory. Some have him as one of the best prospects ever. I don't like it, so I want to give him his due there. He's not been a disaster. His rookie year, you know, I fought really hard for him on his rookie year. He had the Urban Meyer, that crazy. I mean, that's a fucking Hallmark Channel special that season. He still has issues. He still has a lot of the same issues now that he had 2 years ago. I believe he's still a red zone disaster. And that's where you make your money. You make your money in the red zone.
And I haven't caught too many of their games. So is he even attempting to scramble at times? Because that's something he did in college quite a bit, but he doesn't really do it here in the NFL, which I never fully endorse that because I don't want him to get killed. But if you're not getting there with the run game and you're not getting your receivers open, you got to kind of like
keep the defense honest. Elway, Steve Young, McNair, McNabb. There's all kinds of different flavors of what smart running looks like. And
Jesus Christ, Daniel Jones has a better QBR than Dak Prescott.
Poor
Wave.
It's been rough. Shout out to the homie Wave. Trevor is a guy I think we have to have an honest conversation about him. I don't think it's very likely that he's going to be that top 5, top 3 elite quarterback. I haven't seen anything that tells me that disqualifies him from being a top 10 caliber guy. But I do believe this. I believe I'll take your GOAT is Tom Brady, right? Fine GOAT. My GOAT is Elway. Yeah, those guys. Okay.
Well, no, we remember we went through this. You remember who my second one is, right?
I do remember. I'm not going to make you say it. I
had to reaevaluate it. It's tough. I had to kind of carve out my heart, but yeah.
No, you didn't carve out your heart. You said the painful thing. That's all. Because you're a fair man. So my top 3 in no order: Mahomes, Brady, and then you can do Manning, you can do Marino, there's a lot of guys. Okay. Yeah. If I put those guys on the shitty Texans team that killed Derek Carr, where he was getting sacked 100 times in the 2000s when they wanted to run the ball, I don't think any of them would have been any good, right? So I believe that even if you're an all-timer, your situation can ruin you. So I'm fair on that end. But on the other end, he hasn't always had a great situation. He hasn't always had a disastrous situation. And it's hard for me to sit back and say that over the past 2 years, and last year he was very good and he got hurt and they started losing, and I get that. So let's make it 3 years. Over the past 3 years, I feel like he has underachieved. And in the past 3 years, I believe that there are not a ton, but many 5 to 6 quarterbacks outside of the elite, like that top 4, that would have done better than he did. And so Trevor Lawrence, and he just got paid, that opens up the criticism. We need to start talking about him more along the lines of less of is he going to challenge Mahomes, and more of can he be as good as Kirk Cousins? That's where he is. He's not that top 5. I don't even think he's that 6 to 10. I think he's that 11 to 17, 18. That's where he is. And there's a lot of good quarterbacks. There's a lot of above average quarterbacks in terms of skill and talent. So does he need a change of scenery? Wouldn't hurt. Does he need a new head coach? I think we can say that Peterson, some of the flaws that he was accused of having in Philly, have manifested in Jacksonville. So I would be moving on from their head coach.
Yeah,
I would get him Belichick, because I know Belichick's going to build the defense and tell him, fuck you, you're not special. You don't get to have opinions. I don't give a fuck what you want to fucking do. I know more about quarterbacking than you do, because I'm a Sith of quarterbacking. You'll do what you're told when you're fucking told. And if you give me fucking lip, I will bench you. Throw the fucking check down, or throw the intermediate route. And I'm not saying that he's lazy. I'm not saying that he's soft. So there's some bad takes about Trevor out there that I don't like. But he's been a disappointment, and it's okay to say it.
all right. So let's go to the NFC North, and man, did I fuck this one up.
I regret not picking the Lions.
My pick was Green Bay, Chicago, Detroit, and Minnesota, and boy, was I wrong on every fucking one of them. Now Detroit is killing it. They're probably the best team I've seen this year so far.
You can definitely argue they're number one. I thought that their defense, which has not been great, but it's been better than what I thought it would be their Achilles heel, especially after Hutchinson went down. They just traded for a pass rusher, and their response is, fuck defense, I'm scoring 40. So scoring 40 will win you a lot of football games.
Right.
Scoring 40 will win you a lot of football games. Goff, a lot of people still owe Jared Goff some apologies.
Big time.
Goff should have his name in the MVP discussion. It should be Lamar 1, Derrick Henry 2, Goff 3.
Yeah.
Their flaw in their offense is, God, I feel like an asshole for even criticizing the offense, but we've seen teams with great running backs, all-purpose running backs at that, with good tight end play and excellent slot play, struggle in the playoffs when teams bunch up and say you can't beat us over the top. And they don't have anyone. They have so much redundancy over the middle of the field in the intermediate and short game. Jameson Williams, especially if he can play, he's got a lot of issues. But him and Laporta and those running backs make the intermediate to short passing game just hellish to defend. They wear you out. If I have a fear about their offense other than what happens because if pressure gets to Goff, pass rusher pressure. I don't think he's a choke artist. I hate that criticism of him. The second biggest thing is what happens when they need to connect on a 35, 40-yard ball down the field. That is their biggest issue. Now, thus far, they've just said, fuck you, we'll score 40. So scoring 40 will win you a lot of fucking football games. So I'm not ringing the alarm. I'm not ringing the bells, but that is their concern. I had them as the top wild card team. They're probably going to win the conference. I had the Packers winning the division. They're probably going to make the wild card, although there should be some concern. Love has been dinged up several times. He's been a little inconsistent. Still think he's a good player. I had the Bears as a wild card team. That is kind of unlikely at this point, but it's still in play. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I think, and the funny thing is, I think when I chose Chicago second, I think his Fields was still there, and I was expecting him to kind of lead them there. So I didn't know much about Caleb, so I didn't really expect Caleb to kind of show up like he did. Now they're 4-4, so they're right in the mix of it, but
that Washington loss was brutal on that Hail.
But the other three teams are playing way better than they are right now, so I just don't see that.
Can I push back on that just a smidge? I think the Vikings are going to miss the playoffs. I never bought into the Vikings. I thought that they were overrated, and I think you're going to see the bottom
at 6-2.
Yes.
So you think Chicago might leapfrog them?
I think it's likely that they both miss the playoffs, but I don't think I think the Vikings are going to get to 9 wins and be the first team out.
Well, here's the thing. So my playoff teams, and I've already had to swap out 2. I had Philly, Green Bay, Tampa, Arizona, which we'll get to, San Francisco, Atlanta, and LA Rams. And at this point, even though I picked Arizona to win the division, I think they're going to fall out. And so I'm going to put Minnesota where they are.
Interesting.
But the caveat there is I'm not totally sold on San Fran either. They're struggling as well. So that could be another one that if Arizona makes it, San Fran may not. And I
They're
think you
heating
actually
back
talked
up.
about it. You
Yeah.
thought they might miss, or at least not.
I talked about there is an uncomfortable reality with them that they had such good injury luck last year, and they're an older team that's a very top heavy talented team. That if the injury luck goes the other way, McCaffrey has a lot of injury issues. Debo's been dinged up in his career. Ayuk, and I've talked about this, and I really shout out to Dogfish from the board because I saw him talk about this on Facebook too. But when you have a contract issue, and I was more on Ayuk's side for most of it. Towards the end, he started to lose me with some of the antics, but it's worth $1 million or $2 million to get your guy into camp and condition him so you don't pay him and lose him for the year. We've seen that before. And ACL tears, they can happen a lot of ways. Sometimes they happen just by not being in football. When I say shape, I mean football shape. Ayuk is obviously would shut down a fucking gym if he walked into it. But he didn't have his legs underneath him, and he popped his ACL. And that happens sometimes when your body's not in the physical demands of being a football player are brutal. So you saved maybe $1 million or $2 million, and you lost him for the year in a Super Bowl or bust window. Good job. So I thought that they were going to make it. I wasn't going to pick against them, but there is that uncomfortable reality with them. McCaffrey might be back. I still don't think he's actually going to play this year, but he's trending towards coming back. Or I should say, I don't think he's going to play very much this year. But I think Purdy has earned a new contract, top 10 quarterback. I'm no longer debating that. He's a top 10 quarterback. He might be 8, he might be 9, he might be 10. He is a top 10 quarterback.
He's playing well.
He is a top 10 quarterback.
Now, the other swap that I have was I initially had the Rams as a wild card, but I don't think they're going to make it. Not because of Stafford, just I think they don't have enough talent there to get there. But I think Detroit definitely has to be in there. And they're really the only other ones that I can see, unless Tampa, like, they struggle a little bit, but I think they're still going to get there.
The injuries are brutal. Cade Otton has really picked up the slack for them. I think for me, so if I'm redoing it now, the Lions are winning that division, the AFC or the NFC North. I'm going to put the Packers at a wild card. The West, I'm going to pick the Rams to actually win because they got Kupp back and they got Nakua back and they're slinging it. And the Jared Verse is having a
so you think they're just going to come back and take the division?
I think they're going to take the division.
I think there's a little bit of bias there.
They are my NFC team. Yeah. But I could easily, but if they don't get it, I'm going to put the Niners to win. Because 3 out of the last 4 years, they've started slow. They're like the Bengals and ended up going on hellacious runs. So they have that in them. So let's say, let's put the Rams at the wild card. Let's put the Packers at the wild card. I don't see anyone from the East making. No, that's wrong. I have the Eagles making it. I have the Commanders winning. So those are my wild card teams. And the division winners will be the Commanders. I think Atlanta will hold on to the South. They're a pretty good team. The defense, this is what I feel for teams. When they know what their weaknesses are and they address them, and it still doesn't work out. They've traded for pass rushers. They've drafted pass rushers. They know that's their issue. They're open about it being an issue. And Judon's a good player. They're doing what other than just saying we're taking 3 pass rushers and trading for 3 and someone's going to stick. They've addressed it, but the NFC is tough. So the Falcons will win it. We'll say the Niners win it. The Commanders win it. And then the Lions win it. So Rams. That's fucking rough. Rams, Eagles, Packers. A lot of blue bloods in the playoffs for the NFC, which is good for ratings.
All right. So again, by the time I think around week 16 or 17, we were going to agree we're going to reevaluate again.
Either that or the week before the week of the playoffs starting, but before the games. So that is a lot of wiggle room, chat. But we are busy as fuck.
But I am going to go ahead and I'm gonna because I think I picked a Niners Ravens Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna change it. And I'll give Neko's picks here because she still has her picks here. But I want to get your pick for the Super Bowl, at least at this time, which it can always change. But what do you feel at this moment?
The AFC Championship will be a rematch. The Ravens and the Chiefs. The Chiefs will eke out a win. The NFC will be Lions, Niners, with the Lions prevailing this time. So I actually think it's going to be a rematch of the championship games. And then unfortunately, I do believe that the Chiefs, with their newfound offense, will win the Super Bowl.
So they'll repeat.
They'll be the first three-peat in NFL history. Super Bowl three-peat, because the Packers did it with championship, and then they joined the NFL and then Lombardi.
So for me, I agree. Detroit will probably represent the NFC. They're just really on another level right now. But I think Baltimore is due. And depending... No, you know what? I still think Baltimore will get it done. Chiefs are good, but they're not winning. I mean, winning is winning. It's just how it goes. Like, they're undefeated. There's a reason why they're undefeated. But sooner or later, I think that shit's going to run out. And I think Baltimore's ready. And Derrick Henry was a good pickup. If he stays healthy, I'm shocked
he stayed healthy. I thought that he was going to be really good and get hurt, because that's what he's been the past couple of years, sort of, and that's what history tells us. His first bout, Hall of Fame running back.
Now, I can't tell you who's going to win between Detroit and Baltimore. I'm going to lean Detroit, but for now, I'm just going to kind of leave that as my picks.
I would pick Baltimore, because I remember what happened to Detroit last year, and while Baltimore's defense fucked them up, Lamar.
Baltimore went in and beat them really bad, and then they went to San Fran and annihilated them.
It is a fucking. I mean, the Ravens' offense they have the best running back in football. With respect to McCaffrey, even if McCaffrey was healthy, unless he was having a repeat performance of last year, it did have to be him. So they have the best running back in football. Andrews and Likely, they don't have a true number one tight end this year. It's been weird. They're hot and cold, but they have good tight end play. Zay Flowers is a monster. Bateman is doing some things. Their wide receiver core is above average. They don't have a true number one, but it's not like years past where he's thrown to Trashola. The offense is filthy. The running back, the two tight ends, they have a good mix of what I mean, like Ravens roster. It's weird that their defense is the bigger. It's weird that their defense is the bigger question mark. But like, this is their depth chart on offense. Zay Flowers, Deontay Johnson, presuming he picks it up. Bateman, Andrews. The offensive line is better than what we thought it would be, and Lamar. So they can be down by 14 and still justify running the ball. That is, ironically, it's a totally different style of offense, but that reminds me of the Shanahan Denver years, and not just the Super Bowl ones. Because Henry can just break off an 80-yard touchdown run out of fucking nowhere. He's had games where I play fantasy, getting back into a little bit, where it's the third or fourth quarter, halfway through the third quarter, he has 7 points, and all of a sudden he's at 20, where he just ripped off a 50-yard touchdown run and a 30-yard run. And the guy is just a monster. The guy is a monster. Derrick Henry, what a guy. Was not Raven, but what a guy.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Like, I don't know. We'll see how it plays out, but right now, like, I'm probably gonna shoot myself in the foot, because every time I think the Ravens are going to go to the Super Bowl, they don't. Like, it's like something, and the Chiefs are the ones that usually get in the way. All right, real quick for you, beginning of the season, you chose the Super Bowl representative of the Falcons and the Ravens. We're at the mid-season point. Has it changed at all with your perception of who's going to go to the Super Bowl? You don't have to pick a winner, but who do you think is going to make it?
I don't know.
So far, Poet has picked Detroit versus the Chiefs. I picked Detroit versus the Ravens.
I was going to say Detroit's doing even better now than they did last year. For me, though, like...
You're losing faith in Cousins?
Oh, I'm not losing faith in Cousins. Kirk Cousins...
You like that. You like that.
He's not going to win a bunch of playoffs. He's just not. But
Jada just put a smile on his face when you said that.
But he is a very good. he's just a business quarterback.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
He's going to have a winning season, but he's probably not going to win you a lot of playoffs, even though I really
Playoffs?
Playoffs? I'm just trying to win a game.
Exactly. But like what we've seen in Detroit last year, and we thought it was a fluke, and we're watching them again this year. Now, during preseason, they looked like old Detroit. They got their shit together, and they looked like last year's Detroit.
But the funny thing about Detroit is they usually playoff times. There's a one game where they just don't quite measure up.
Just like what the fucking Ravens did last year against the Chiefs. They were a much better team.
Well, he's already picking a 3-peat with the Chiefs. He's already made his decision. He's saying the Chiefs are going to beat the Lions.
Probably, but
it's Campbell. He's a great coach.
This is the thing, though. I don't discredit though that the Chiefs are gonna have to go against the Ravens again, probably in the AFC Championship, and
that's
Ravens
probably
are
a done deal.
As shit, and the Chiefs are gonna probably have to go on the road again because they've got quite a bit.
Well, I don't know, because right now the Chiefs are in control, and then
the Ravens have 3
Ravens
losses.
and Steelers are fighting for that division. Right now, the Steelers are winning the division. So
and they beat the Ravens, so they have the head-to-head. So the Ravens are 4 games behind.
Chiefs probably could get home field if they keep up what they're doing.
They do. For me, the issue.
What would be an insult to injury though is that those motherfuckers go undefeated the entire year and still win. I'd be so pissed.
Is that your really?
Yes, it is.
You look so good in it. You lost some weight since you bought it. Or did my mom buy it for you? I can't remember.
Your mom did,
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that handsome fellow.
Looking good. Yeah.
It's
unfortunately I'm in sweatpants, so
it's all hot. Pretty hot and tempting.
This me and my
oh boy.
Was it the psychotic defilement?
Yeah.
This is why we can't get monetized on YouTube.
Yeah. I was looking because when we were going through the rankings and the ratings of the divisions. I'm like, Missy picked the Falcons. I'm surprised because last year she went totally Lions. But now you are switching to the Lions.
Well, I didn't completely give up on the Lions, but the Lions.
But after preseason, you were concerned.
Yeah, preseason gave me some concerns. However,
never trust preseason.
But I know Kirk Cousins, just his.
Well, to be fair, he's playing well, but they're 6-3, so they're not dominating.
But that's what I'm saying. He's a good quarterback.
He's
a good business quarterback. He's going to give you a winning season, but he may not win the playoffs. He might win the first, but he might surprise us all.
If they get to the Super Bowl, I don't care who they're playing, they better beat them because I'll be rooting for them.
If Kirk Cousins wins the Super Bowl.
You and I will go back to the forums and just purposely troll the shit out of everybody.
That's not trolling. That's doing God's work.
That's justice.
That's justice.
It would not hurt my feelings if Cousins won the Super Bowl at all because I think he.
Well, right now, if Detroit gets there, I'm rooting for them, hands down.
Yeah, well,
would you root for Detroit over the Steelers?
What's that?
Would you root for the Detroit over the Steelers if that was the?
Do you want my honest opinion?
It's only honest. Only honest.
If Russell's quarterback, I'm going Detroit. If it's Justin, I might go Steelers.
I just want to understand why that.
I do not want to hear shit from fucking Steelers fan or anyone else tell me, "Oh, Broncos had Russell, but look what happened."
That's what I'm
Steeler country, let's roll.
Okay for the fucking
because he's not allowed. He's not allowed because he can't do his Denver shit. Mike Tomlin
because
doesn't
want to push around Hackett. He can't push around Tomlin. He can push around Hackett, but not Tomlin.
You can't
let Russ cook.
There is no. It's
let Tomlin cooking. Cook. He's serving dishes right now.
It's let TJ cook. We let TJ cook.
Yeah.
And we run a ball control balanced offense. No, Missy,
I talked about earlier that Justin looks good, man. I mean, he wasn't getting run in the end zone much, but I think overall he's just playing better. He has more to offer, a higher ceiling. But
He does have the higher ceiling.
but Tomlin's
right now,
coach,
Russ is
and
better.
I respect that
He's
coach. So whatever he's
I mean,
choosing to go
Steelers
with.
have amazing coaches. Like they've had 3 the entire time as an organization.
Bill Cowher is really good.
Chuck Noll,
Chuck Noll is a
Chuck
legend.
Noll, Cowher to Tomlin. It's like quarterbacks with Green Bay, where they go from Favre to Rodgers, and Love has looked good. Missy, I have a question for you. It's about Detroit.
Yeah.
Do you feel like Campbell is going to do better? Because last year he went for it too much, even though that was in their DNA, or they dialed up the wrong plays when they went for it, depending on how you want to slice it.
Campbell's a coach. So he was a bit of a risk taker last year, and that kind of bit him in the ass occasionally.
He still is. But do you think he's going to do a better job with the experience that he had?
I think he's unapologetic. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's going to. I think he might make a few more
He might not be unapologetic, but you do have to kind of learn as you go along because he was that close.
He might make some better decisions,
And that's what he's getting at. Is like,
but I think he doesn't he's a risk taker and he believes, and I think maybe he did learn a little bit from last year. I mean, obviously he did something with a team that was down in the gutter for how many years?
It's been a minute.
These guys have all just kind of come together, and they're.
I thought when they traded Goff, I thought he was going there to die because I thought
that's what happens. So you go to Detroit to die, but
Goff said, "Hold my beer, hold my beer."
He had one very average season. And that's when they were kind of rebuilding. And then we got to give it to Detroit.
Kudos to the Lions to stick with him because they could have easily said, you know what, he's still not our guy. We're going to just move on. But they said, nope, we're going to build around you. We're going to give you some weapons. Here we go. We're going to run.
Well, they did the analysis of what is more likely that we get weapons and we build a great line. Building the great line is actually harder than getting the weapons. It used to be the reverse. But if what's more likely to hit it out of the park with a brand new quarterback and get success immediately, or taking a guy who's been good, maybe not great, but been good, and put him in a situation to be great. Because they just said, I would rather work with the guy who's pretty good and build off of that than spin the quarterback wheel. Because let's be honest, we just spent 15 minutes giving Jaden Daniels all kinds of props and love, right? It's not guaranteed that he's an all-pro guy 4 or 5 years from now. A lot can happen. Coaching, he could get injured. They could lose the supporting cast. I mean, it's just like Stroud from last year to this year. He's obviously good. We're not shitting on him. But things change so quickly in the NFL, man. So it's the Lions, the front office has been drafting well. They had a good strategy. I'm a Goff guy. I'm happy for him. And I think
I now call him Jeff Gosling.
I called him.
He might as well be.
I call him the Goff Stritch, but yes, that also.
The Goff Stritch.
I mean, I think I've told you this. His wife is a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model.
Dude, you could take any quarterback in the NFL, and their women are more gorgeous. Mahomes has a beautiful wife.
Russell is married to Sierra.
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, that's pretty good.
That could be a habit, though.
She's a lot taller than him.
Jesse James Decker and Eric Decker.
Oh yeah,
that's like the most.
And they have 20 kids, and she still looks great.
Yeah, she's gorgeous. He's gorgeous. The kids are gorgeous. They're always posting pictures of them just being beautiful together and kissing and exercising.
Oh, they're exercising, all right.
Yeah,
That's all we're looking at the kids.
Sorry, we just got into R-rated territory with the stream.
It is what it is. No, there's something about if you're the quarterback in the NFL, you've probably been the guy leading up to that point, and it's probably working out well for you. But
yeah,
do we have anything? So we've done the divisions. We've made fun of ourselves for being wrong. We did a bit of a playoff. Do we have anything? Do we have anything else?
Oh, hold on one sec.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Just preparing for dinner after the show, but
Yeah.
yeah. So we've covered our revisions, our division winners, and how we kind of feel everything playing out. We'll probably end up doing all this over again in a few weeks, but
Talk about how dumb we are and why didn't we see the Lions falling off and the rise of the injured Buccaneers?
That's the thing, right? We can't really take blame if, say, tomorrow Goff blows out his knee. Like,
yeah, no, that's a wild. You
just can't do it. Like, that's why when I picked Miami, I didn't. Even though I kind of said to myself it could happen that Tua would get hurt because he is prone to that, but you don't go into the season saying, yeah, he's just not going to be there for like 3 or 4 weeks.
See, I do, and I paid for it last year, and now
you learned your lesson. I didn't. That's the problem.
It's also there's a thing of it, like, how pessimistic do you want to be? I don't believe like, if a team wasn't injured last year, they're going to be injured this year. But with the Niners, the difference is that like Trent, old, injuries, McCaffrey, injuries. You know what I mean? It becomes very player specific, and that right. I think is okay. Because like, fuck, man. One of the reasons that it's not that you hate mobile quarterbacks, but one of the reasons that you push back against a fully mobile, like a young Mike Vick, isn't that if this was football, but with injuries turned off, if it's Madden, that's a radically different environment than tackle football as is constituted. Tackle, and so that factors into things. And then you just get weird shit where, fuck, we've all seen a game where a team, it's like they've come in healthy, and then by the end of the game, they're down 4 starters on their offensive line. And you're like, how the fuck did that one group of players, like, how do you get 4 season-ending injuries or a big chunk of time-ending injuries in one game, let alone all on the same unit? It's football. It's brutal. So I don't feel good when I'm like, I just don't think McCaffrey can last another season. I feel like an asshole, but it's not like I'm wishing it on them. It's tough because with the draft, I try to be.
I mean, we're that way now with Burrow. Like, you just don't expect him to finish the entire season. Like,
well, you don't. There's a lot of people who. So there's a bias against running quarterbacks where I think people don't want to call a pocket guy injury prone, even if they are. But it's easier to conceptualize how a running quarterback might get hurt. That's why I was how many episodes did I lose my mind when people were like, because you'd be like, oh, with Lamar, there's a heightened risk of injury, but he's pretty durable versus this is the year where his career falls apart and he's never going to play football again. It's like, brother, he got hurt in the pocket.
I mean, I do think that with these kind of quarterbacks, by like year 5 or 6, you're just getting older, and like you can't do half the shit you used to do. I know this just at my own age, and I'm not even a football player. Like barely walking to the store can get my knees hurt.
Lamar doesn't run the same way. Like if it's playing,
and that's what makes Lamar smart. Like, I'm so glad. Like, people say he's dumb. He's not dumb at all. And so he has adjusted his game. He plays better. He's been playing better. Yeah. That's always important because he's been focusing on his passing. He was looking great against us, like passing wise, and also now he has probably the best running game he can possibly have. Henry's there, and he has somebody he can rely on in that manner. But if he has to run, he'll do it, but he will like slide and run out of bounds.
And if the game's on the line, if it's a big 4th down, if it's the playoffs, he's going to open it up. And the thing with it is, but like, he is not as fast, even though he dropped some of the weight that he gained because he figured out he overdid it in that regard. He's fast as hell. I'm not saying that I'm just saying that at 27, he's not as fast as he was at any weight, as he was at 21. But it just is what it is. I mean, let's be honest. Elway's mobility in his mid-30s was still good. He's John Elway. And there's more pure pocket passer stats, Drew Bledsoe types guys back then. But at 28, he wasn't moving exactly the same way he was at 22. Well, why is that? Because he's played tackle football for 6 years. That's why. Because linebackers are bullshit. That's why. So it is. There's something to be said for that. Very few people can play tackle football and lose a step late in their career. Randy Moss was probably running a 4.2, a 4.3 in his late 20s and early 30s. By the time he was in his mid 30s, he was probably now running a 4.4, which was at that time 4.5 was a standard speed. 4.4 meant you were a burner. Now 4.4 is your standard speed. 4.3 or better is a burner because athletes just get bigger, stronger, faster as time goes on. It's contextual. No Ravens fan has to be like, oh, if the game comes down to Lamar's mobility, we're fucked. That'd be insane. But it's just what it is. And I think one of the reasons we fuck that up is for pocket pass, or actually not for anyone, for any quarterback. Arm strength is the last thing to go, especially if it's just chuck it as far as you can. So I think we sometimes think that, oh, they're going to be the same. It is what it is. Mike Vick at 27 was still really fucking fast. That was still a strength of his. I'd love to see that guy if he could play in today's game with today's rules. I bet he would have been a lot better. But we'll see how it goes, my man. Do we have? I don't think we have anything else other than we're at the part of the show where we thank our viewers.
Yep. And we promise that you won't shit on our fucking toilet.
Oh, yeah, if they watch your stuff. Oh, yeah, so let's just do it quickly. If you don't support us stuff, I'm not only going to break into your house, I'm going to eat your food, and I'm going to leave a gnarly shit. I will romance your mother.
Jesus.
I will become your father.
I am your father.
And even if I have to adopt children, I will give you siblings. It's high stakes. Watch his shit.
Like and subscribe if you enjoy our content.
Like, subscribe, or don't call your mom past 9 o'clock because she's going to be busy.
But as always, thank you, Mr. Poet, for joining me. It's been
Why am I like this? Why do I say these things? What is wrong with me?
That I have to have somebody comedic relief here,
Oh, it's a different type of relief than your mother's going to get. But yes,
As for the rest of you who please hit and like, subscribe if you enjoyed the content. Let us know what your rankings are, how you feel about the NFL season so far, who's your favorite teams, who do you see in the Super Bowl, and then we'll see you in a few weeks to redo this all again, and then we're going to do our playoff picks, and then of course we'll go for each week and talk
awards. Are we going to do awards?
Yeah, we'll be predicting our awards.
Yeah.
For all the special things like that, and like we did last year. And then, we'll see who wins the Super Bowl and gets there, and hopefully it's not the Chiefs. So,
I love Mahomes, but I'm not going to be crestfallen if they don't repeat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like you've already got enough, dude. You're done.
The only team I really, honestly, I hate the Ravens division rival, but I have so much respect for Lamar as a player and as a person, because he's got, Lord knows, he's been through some bullshit.
God,
I wish he wasn't a fucking Raven. Like, if he played for like an innocuous like NFC team, it'd be a lot easier. Like, if
I've been saying that about Mahomes. Like, couldn't you just go to the NFC or something?
Couldn't you just play for the fucking Falcons or some shit? Like,
fucking Browns, go do something.
No, I don't want him in the division. No, that was horrifying.
But thanks everybody for watching, and then we'll just catch you next time here on the Military Radio Podcast for Poetic Carnage.
Don't make me call your mama. Don't make me call your mama.
Do it, man.
Don't make me call your mama.
Do it.
I'll do it.